Hello, welcome to Animal Audit Corner. This channel is about the former Scientologists and all of their advocates, with all their stories about not only them, but about the cult that they were once in, which is Scientology. We are going to have a look into their lives and world. Here is their story. The anonymous group is best known for being rivals with the Church of Scientology. Anonymous is considered to be one of the most mysterious groups of computer hackers around. They are always recognized for wearing a mask or bandana. The anonymous group protests have information for everybody, but they have it for the world, not only in this country. On January 15th, 2008, tech consultants whose name is George is one of the most anonymous protesters that's a part of the movement. The anonymous group is a double-edged sword. Either they follow the law or they would break it. The anonymous group was the first to protest Scientology. They practically formed a movement. They did that when they one day hacked into computers and found out about inhumane practices that Scientology was into. And that was when the leaked Tom Cruise's infamous black sweater video turned up on the internet. Then later, it turned up on network TV. The war went against Scientology, but that internet community formed by that internet community from Anonymous. That would be the community group everybody's talking about when it comes to the internet. When journalists told reporters on the whole event went out, all the reports said that leadership of the anonymous movement did not exist when it did. This would give birth to a new movement, which would lead to a protest that Scientology will never forget. On January 21st, 2008, they went directly to Scientology's website along with a press release, and it would be followed with a cyber attack. Right after, they would give Scientology a dose of their own medicine by an online harassment with a voice on YouTube with buildings, clouds, green grass, and trees that was overwhelming to them. And this was a footage that they were using when they were presenting themselves to Scientology, which would later turn into a nightmare of theirs. They also have other pranks such as dark faxes and phone calls to their when they waste all their resources that they had. Which, guess what? Scientology would actually do themselves when it comes to protesters. Just ask Scott Holstinger. I think that's the way you say it. Aaron Smith Levin, Jessica Palmadessa, all of them, when they are protesting, they even did it to Aaron Smith Levin. So now, when the shoe's on the other foot, they don't like it. That is just so cool that they got the dose of their own medicine. Now, normally I would say, you know what? That's not a mature way to settle anything. We should do it like normal people. But some people don't see it that way, or they just don't get it. But guess what? Without even realizing it, we are also falling into the same category as they are. We just don't realize that we're doing it. And they would have the first protest against the organization on February 10th, 2008, with thousands of people partaking in a protest. There were just so many that it would just overwhelm Scientology and their leader, David Miscavige. Isn't that a hoot? That whole event was called Project Channelology. And when they protested, they all wore masks. The movement anonymously started to protest Scientology. That organization spokeswoman, Karen Powell, had accused Anonymous of a hate crime. And guess what? She should talk, because you know what? They're into hate crimes all. Just ask the protesters, ask the former members when they make a hate video on Scientology. Now that is just ridiculous. And now, when the shoe falls on the other foot, they don't like it. Well, guess what, Karen Powell? That is just tough. Because guess what? You guys commit hate crimes all the time. You got a street person to beat up Confident Chris. Then, when you're having this so-called festivals to get people to buy the L. Ron Hubbard book or whatever, Dianetics, and you were going to take off with when you saw him and the rest of the people protesting, you got them to call a big guy to beat him up. Then you nearly got him ran over by a car. So guess what, Karen Powell, whatever. I wouldn't talk if I were you. Because you spur hate crimes all the time. You and Scientology and your master, David Miscavige. You are a cult that's into hate crimes. They would supposedly highlight whatever crime they had said they did and wouldn't identify all the protesters that were protesting that were there. They would report them to law enforcement, had one suspect. It would be Dimitri Guzner. The New Jersey native had pled guilty and was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in federal prison. But yet, you know what? When Scientology does it, with their human trafficking, money laundering, and their human trafficking and slave labor, including child labor, they don't spend any time in prison, which is ridiculous. I'm not saying whatever Anonymous did was right. It's wrong. They never should hack into other people's computers. But yet, when Scientology commits a crime, nothing is done usually. Okay, maybe Danny Masterson was sentenced to 30 to life, and a couple of other women actually went to prison themselves. And there's also Anthony D'Amato Jr., who I guess is on trial now, and the judge put him in the jail cell. And the judge actually got in touch with the LAPD, not in the Northern District or the Hollywood District, but the one on the other side of town. He used those cops instead. He was 19. Dimitris Gumnez was 19 at the time. He was in prison from November 2009 till November 2010. That would be 1 year. Anonymous still protests today, but Scientology would be their main focus. They also had protest George Floyd's death. They would also treat other subjects such as social justice, politicians, and corporations. So this whole thing would be a social issue that the anonymous protesters would protest. And Scientology happens to be one of them. Oh, excuse me. Then nevertheless, anonymous groups was the first to protest Scientology. They practically formed when they protest them. But after that, they went on to protest other issues, like the ones I just mentioned. Then they would have the first protest Scientology. They practically formed a movement which would go into the SP protest today. That would be William Good, who started filming the whole idea on video. He's the one that started that kind of movement all over the world. And it started right here. William Good leads that, following by Jessica Palmadessa, Coffin and Chris without a Hellcat, and Solomon, I don't know his last name, and Dan Walks LA, Mindy, Aaron, and all the former Scientologists, including Jenna Miscavige herself. That's right. She is known as David Miscavige's niece, and she tells her own experience in not one but two books, or maybe other ones, but those are the two that she has, or one of them's coming out. But she has her first book out, well, still around, called Beyond Belief. So purchase that. And speaking of readings, purchase Jamie Mustard's book, Child X, and it tells his story about Scientology. The anonymous group started protesting Scientology. The organization spokeswoman, Karen, would speak out against them. When all in all, her and Scientology, along with their master, David Miscavige, would be having hate crimes on everybody who don't care for Scientology and don't even like them. Then ultimately, law enforcement arrests Demetrius Gomez and would serve 1 year sentence for hacking into Scientology's computer, which in doubt, Scientology never has to suffer any consequences but the crimes they commit, such as human trafficking, money laundering, child labor, you name it, they done it. But are they like a La Costa Nostra? No way, because they wouldn't even want to be caught doing some of the things they do. They beat each other up, launder trafficking, and child labor. I just said I know that. And in conclusion, they pretend to be the most ethical people on Earth when they prove that they're not. They're not the most ethical people on Earth. No way. Not with all the stupid acts they commit, all the criminal activity they commit. And all in all, that's the way the protests would still march on into today. Anonymous would be the very first ones to protest Scientology when before they weren't being protested before. And then along came Anonymous and found out by hacking into their computer that they were into inhumane practices. Now, does that make it right for them to hack into other people's computers? No, it doesn't. Do they have to stop doing that? Of course. But this whole deal with Scientology is just messed up because none of them had to. David Miscavige never had to suffer any of the consequences that they did or the crimes that they commit. And this guy did. Dimitri did. He suffered the consequences by pleading guilty, which was a right thing to do. But however, Scientology just manages to get out of trouble. And they would get away with it by safe pointing. They would do this to cops. They would do this to politicians. Nancy Cartwright safe pointed the Attorney General Pat Bondi. And of course, she is looking the other way. And she's saying she wants to send all the immigrants back to their country. And yet, Scientology just traffics them in, and she's not doing a thing about it. And neither is Trump. And he has Project ICE. And he's a hypocrite himself because I think he knows that Scientology is doing that. And yes, he's a hypocrite too for not practicing what he preaches. There's this nice guy like John Travolta who is in the business, in Scientology, and he thinks he's doing the world of good, but yet they use his jet to take back their members and kidnap them to take them back. Now, okay, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy who just did something wrong. Now, I don't know the circumstances. I don't know if they're blackmailing him into it. But whatever it is, then all right, I say, John Travolta, tell your side of the story because you are a nice guy. My theater professor told me about you, and he says you're a nice guy. Now, you don't need to be in an organization like that. You wanna do public service and donate your time. There's Habitat for Humanity. There's, let's see, the food banks, Across Foundation, the SP Foundation. There are plenty of nonprofit organizations that you can volunteer for. You do not need Scientology. But, every day something goes wrong, and that's the world. We're not living in a perfect society. If there were, Scientology wouldn't exist. And Tom Cruise, he definitely turned into David Miscavige, and he thinks whatever he does is right. And if he's a nice guy before he joined Scientology, he's not a nice guy now. But the good news is their numbers are just dwindling down. And it continues to go down. And of course, all the former Scientologists that came out, such as Jenna herself, who's the leader's niece, her boyfriend Aaron Smith Levin, Mark and Claire Hadley, Leah Remedy, who did her own show about the whole entire issue, came out and told that story on, I think it was A&E. Well, and there was Tori Magoo, 44, which is Tori Crispin, who's a treasure and is a sweet lady. And it's Laura FM, Nora Ames, Liz Ferris, Liz Gale, Serge DeMar. They all survived by leaving. And imagine Laura, Liz, and then Nora being trafficked as children. It's just horrific. And then at the end, they would get hurt. Now, child labor is something that happens in other countries, not in the U.S., where there are laws against it, with Abraham Lincoln signing it into law in 1866. You expect that to happen in other countries. Now, I told you about my dad, who worked labor as a 12-year-old boy. I told you that story, I know, plenty of times. At first, I wanted to do a platform on animal rights issues and come onto this channel. But then I heard more stories about how they treat people with mental illness, and I take offense to that because I have mental illness and learning disabilities. And what L. Ron Hubbard said really hurt. And he has serious mental health issues himself. He said anyone with a disability should be thrown away, which is the worst thing anyone can say about any human being that personally describes him and everybody else. He would discriminate against color, people with mental illness there. And their sex, which is female, because he thinks women should stay in the background while men do everything. And then hopefully one day this whole organization called Scientology ends. Well, that should do it today. I didn't know I was going to go over. I went from talking about the anonymous movement and then went into another story. Hopefully, if I had that to talk about, I will. So, buy me a coffee, hit the like, press subscribe. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow, but other than that, I'll see you on Friday, because I am still trying to get on that directory. But I had to cut back on everything because I am getting so tired. I'm not getting paid for something like this. So before I did a story every day, and then I had to cut back. But maybe I'll pick up all those hours again in the future. But right now I have to take it day by day. And when I have a story, I'll bring it to you. But Friday, I'll definitely have art therapy. And I'm going to do the glass face again until it's completely finished. And then I have more drawings to paint like these, and then animals. I will definitely have something besides a story. I really want to have guests on my show from the SPTV, but for some reason they're not getting back to me. Now, is it because of Scientology? I hope not. Before, I was like, you know what? When I first heard about Scientology, I'm thinking, okay, they got a religion up there. It's really cool. And then the whole story blew up. Dana Masterson went to prison, and that's it. That's when I'm thinking, what? And then while I was writing my book, I'm not going to tell you the name of it, I thought, oh my gosh, wow. Should I write a book about him and dive into his own personal stories? Of course, every time I try to end, I come up with another story. I think I better end it now before going into the other story. So press the like, hit subscribe, buy me a coffee if you can afford it, and I'll see you possibly maybe tomorrow, or I'll definitely see you on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Bye.